Hey there, everybody. Good to be with you again. Today we're comparing, oh, pardon. Today we're comparing obsessive text editors, Emacs versus Scrivener. Scrivener is not what you might think of when you think of text editor. When you think of a classic text editor, you're thinking of a plain text editing system with a very basic user interface that you can heavily customize. I'd call Scrivener a text editor because it's not what you typically think of in a word processor, something like Microsoft Word or LibreOffice Writer. It very much works like a text editor in the way that you treat your document almost like source code, with the idea that you're going to organize it and you're going to structure it in the most appropriate way, but not in its final format or the final destination. You'll typically export it or you'll compile it into something else. And that's what sets Scrivener apart from other apps that are in its class or apps that are proprietary, licensed software, something like Microsoft Word or something like that. And it's very much a very good writing app. The idea of it being, of course, well, not the idea, but the state of it being licensed proprietary software, that would be important to many users, but also at the same time that wouldn't be important to for someone who is just looking to get some work done and doesn't mind paying for a good piece of software that's going to work exactly the way they need it to. Those ideological differences in different types of software licensing arrangements would not be terribly relevant for them. And of course, when I'm talking about Emacs for writing, I'm basically talking about org mode. Org mode is the master mode for writing documents, and of course, as you know from if you're watching my channel, it does a lot of other things as well. But in this context, we're talking about writing, document writing. And as I mentioned, it has more of that philosophy of source file that goes to many different formats as you approach your work. So let's talk about a few comparisons here. I broke it down in a few different dimensions here. The first part here was user interface. So the Emacs user interface, well, you're looking at it. That's what I'm in right now, right? It's pretty plain. You can make it pretty fancy, but it comes out of the box pretty plain, and you start tweaking it as you like it. Of course, the Scrivener user interface will be completely different. It'll be a little more what we might think of as user friendly. It's got a bit of a softer onboarding journey. As you jump in, you basically look around and you can get an idea of how it's working. Of course, Emacs requires a bit of training, even just to learn, what keys you're going to use to move around and things like that. And it's not terribly difficult, but it's a different type of learning. It requires a different type of mindset to practice and get used to it. And of course, as you get into Scrivener, you'll see that there's some easier theming as far as, do you want your light mode, your dark mode, and has a few other built-in themes as well. So you can kind of play with those. And both have, of course, tutorials and help manuals. The Emacs guided tutorial is, I think, a pretty good way to onboard new users if they know where to find it. And just if you're curious, I believe it's Control H and the letter T. Let's see. Yeah, the Emacs tutorial. So Control H and then the letter T. So not bad. And the help manual for help manual for Scrivener is pretty good as well. I think you get like a big PDF when you install it. And of course, I would say that in general, Emacs has better documentation, because every aspect of Emacs is sort of self-documenting, right? So there's a lot of detailed information that you can really dig into and really learn the ins and outs of everything you can do in Emacs. So if that's something that interests you, investing more time in Emacs would be good. And of course, so when I'm talking about structure here, I'm talking about how you approach your work, how you can structure your documents. Of course, with Emacs and org mode, you get better organizational features as far as the speed at which you can really move around your document and move things up and down, move sections, refile things. you have things like file includes. So for example, if you wanted to have one master file and a bunch of subfiles, you can use your master file to include content from the other files, or within a file itself, you have different headings that you can move things up and down. And you're basically writing, you can be composing and outlining at the same time, which is a big deal. And Scrivener has a similar philosophy where you can basically have different nodes or modules that you're writing, and then you can bind them all together at the end or reorganize them in different ways. You can, just like org mode, you can have different nodes that are nested under each other. So that's also very important, because if you want to, say, break down each node as a scene and then have all those scenes in one chapter, or move one scene to another chapter, you can do that. It's just a lot of clicking and dragging, and you can't really put it on simple keystrokes, which is what, of course, Emacs and other modal text editors specialize in, doing things quicker on your keyboard and not having to do so much work with the mouse, clicking and dragging. And of course, the organizational view that you get in Emacs is what you have here. You have headings in a plain text document, and you can move things up and down like that. It's a plain text view. You get something that's a little more high concept in Scrivener, something that's a little more designed. You have like an outline view where you can, as I said, have different nodes that you can promote or demote or nest in a different structure. And there are some keystrokes that you can use in that outline view to move things around faster. And then you can actually use your space bar to like open up a document from the outline view. So that can kind of save you some time. And you also have like a note card view, which you can click and drag and move things around as well. So if you'd like to work with that sort of design aesthetic, it could also be good for you. And of course, compilation and exporting. This is a big deal, because what we're talking about here is writing in one format and exporting it to many, which of course org mode does, and Scrivener does that as well, even to LaTeX and to Markdown and other things that HTML, other things that you might need to do. So with both of these programs, you have a lot of options for exporting. Exporting from Emacs, though, I'm going to do more videos about that, but it does require a lot of tweaking to get the kind of customization that you might get built in with Scrivener. And as I said, more granular control over those nodes and how you want them to appear in the final export. And of course, for writers, this would be a big deal. Built-in support for a standard manuscript format, which if you're going to be submitting your manuscripts to different publishers or editors or things, having built-in support for standard manuscript format can save you some time, and you don't have to build and format that yourself. So those are what I'd say are the biggest differences between, for me, Emacs and Scrivener. Both great pieces of software. Scrivener gives you a free trial, so I would suggest try it out if you're on Mac or Windows. Obviously, if you're on Linux, the choice is easy. It's going to have to be Emacs, because there is no, at least as far as I know today, no Linux version of Scrivener yet. But we'll see. But thanks for watching. I'm going to leave it there. And of course, if you have any comments or critiques of your own, let me know. That would be great. And of course, smash the like button and subscribe. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching.